Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of That Real Estate Tech Guy. I'm your host, Jordan Samuel Fleming, chairman of Smartphone. Now, this week, I've got a very different episode because usually we're talking to investors, we're talking to, technology companies, and a lot of times we're focused on the acquisition side of things. Today, I have Tim Street from Foolproof SBO. FSBO. And I should say, for sale by owner. And Tim's got a really great take on why you, as investors, if you are doing, if you're flipping, why you should consider doing the realtor side yourself, right? Why you should really be taking a more active role. And he's got a whole blueprint of how to do it. And there's a lot of really fun bits in this conversation. And it actually chimes really well with some of the other dispo conversations I've been having recently. One of the things Tim was really focused on was, look, man, in this market, you've got to make your property stand out. It's no longer a situation where you can just pop it up there and guarantee that you're going to get a large price. You got to work for it. And there's really great steps that Tim brings, a lot of great knowledge Tim drops in here. And I definitely recommend listen to this, listen to what he's saying. It's going to seriously help your dispo side of things. And go over, there's a couple links in the description here of stuff that Tim is giving away, access to some of his materials where he teaches people how to do all this. And I definitely recommend that you drop in and take a look at those as well. So let's get right to the show with Tim Street from Foolproof FSBO. And I am live with Tim Street. Tim, welcome to the podcast. Why don't you introduce yourself and a bit about what you do to the audience?
Jordan, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. My name is Tim Street. I'm also known as the FSBO Guy. For those in the real estate industry, they already know what FSBO means. It's for sale by owner. And I'm basically here as a homeowner's advocate and investor advocate. I help people who look at the home as an asset and help them try to optimize and retain every penny of equity they possibly can by making really smart, really informed decisions when they go ahead and decide to liquidate out of it.
Okay, so walk me through. I mean, obviously, the people who are investors will know all about this. But if we kind of give me a snapshot of who is likely to be in this scenario, who's likely to be in the scenario, and what are the most common ways you probably work with people, or you're able to help them get a result for them.
Well, the interesting thing about an investor is, and I happen to be, that's actually why I have my license, is because I wanted to be a real estate investor. And I got really sick of working with agents who didn't have necessarily the business or negotiation experience that I had from working in the startup arena in all those years. So I got my own license. And one of the things that has really stuck with me early on, I realized the power of leverage. And this is whether you're in startups, whether you're in paper, whether you're in real estate, leverage is such a key thing. And it was such a shock to learn that you didn't have to own something to control it. You just had to have a controlling interest. And I thought that was amazing, especially when it comes to real estate. Every dollar I save when I turn over an asset is levered, maybe by a factor of 10 or 100. So when I save $1 or $2 or $3 on a sale as an investor, that can be $100, $200, or $300 of purchasing power on the other end. And that's why I love this idea of getting into understanding how homes are sold, what actually moves the lever, and how do I make sure that every penny I could possibly save, it accrues like tens of thousands of dollars, which is just an insane amount of leverage on my next project that I'm rolling into. So that's where I really get excited about it, is when I talk to investors, I'm like, listen, when I'm talking to my parents who are just mom and pop retail homeowners, sure, saving $30,000 to them is great, but saving $30,000 to an investor it's a whole new project maybe they can invest in.
And so walk me through, and I'm gonna plead ignorance on this. So walk me through, if I, when I look at the kind of investor journey, you've got the three most common exit strategies for an investor that I see. Of course, there's a lot of there's specialist things as well in there. But if I look at an average person who's doing single family home deals, they're either going to be wholesaling it, flipping it, or holding it as the three main ones. Of course, then you've got subject to, and you've got like co-living and all these other sorts of things. But if I look at those kind of three as the main, how does this sort of interact with those three exit strategy models?
So when it comes to wholesaling, because that's just more selling the contract or the rights to
That's true. To be
purchase or
fair,
sell.
you'd be talking about the flipping more than anything.
Exactly. Yeah. So I would talking to the second of the two groups, which are the flippers and the buy and hold when they eventually want to liquidate or maybe 1031 into something different. And so when I think about the groups that would be interested in talking to me or learning from me, it's the ones who tend to be a lot more hands-on. And so these aren't people who own, $1 billion assets. These are people like me. I have a very small 3-home portfolio of short-term rentals right here in Brevard County. And there are times I have a team I don't enjoy going over to get my hands dirty, but sometimes I have to be the guy to go over and reset the stupid internet, or I have to be the guy to go snake out a drain line that got clogged because my plumber's on vacation or on his honeymoon. So, the people like me who actually still have to care about the day-to-day operations, I've seen my friends who are investors lose entire weekends, like retiling bathrooms. And then they go and then it's time to sell. And then they hand it off to a real estate agent who's taken 30 grand from them to do a job that they're so capable of doing. They just don't realize it. And that's partly our fault. I'm a real estate agent, so I'm taking all the blame on this as well. I've paid into an industry that spent billions of dollars convincing homeowners and investors that we're too dumb or we're not experienced enough. It's too legally risky for us to sell our own house. But I'm here to say, actually, that's not true. Not true at all, Jordan. We're as investors, I would put you 10, 11, 12 steps ahead of almost every agent I've worked with in terms of how much do you know about the market? Investors are smart. They have their finger on the pulse. They know what's going on. I consider them far more informed than a lot of the real estate agents I've worked with.
Okay. So let me ask, so that makes a ton of sense. And if I think about then a standard one of our customers who maybe has one or two fix and flip projects on the go at one time, right? Not huge, not to your point. The challenge is always the next step, the disposition side, getting rid of the property. And that's really where you're coming in on this. That's really where you're saying, hey, keep it in your own hands. Do that yourself rather than trying to hand it off and lose a bit of money. So what are the things that most people think they can't do in this scenario? Like what are the things that people don't think they can do?
The biggest fear points my students come to me with are fear of mispricing and missing the market, either leaving a lot of revenue on the table or pricing it so high that nobody shows any interest. And I will tell you, scenario 2 of that is far more impactful and dangerous than scenario 1. In a market like this, you cannot underprice anything, because if you underprice something, there's another person who's going to bid on it. It doesn't exist. Actually, I would tell you, if you were to make that error, underpricing is probably the greatest favor you could do on yourself, because a lot of times when you do that, you create emotional bidding wars, and you end up getting north of what you're going to get to begin with, because there's a spectacle around it. The other thing people are afraid of is the legal side. And yeah, of course, I mean, that's rational. A lot of real estate courts have a ton of for sale by owner cases. And the reason they're there, though, it's almost all disclosure paperwork, almost all of it. So what people miss is when they hire me to be their agent. When I was an active agent, people would hire me. I didn't go get my law degree and then learn how to do title searches and then learn how to be a professional. I hired those people. I hired the same people that you have access to. I was a glorified project manager. I mean, don't get me wrong. The way I position these homes, we almost always got multiple offers. We sold above asking, and we're usually off market in the first weekend. We kicked butt for our clients, but What I'm saying is you could take that. Look, I'm a Marine. I ate crayons for fun. Okay. I'm not like a freaking genius here. So, what I'm saying is I can teach you this model and you should be able to do better than I am because you are the subject matter on that expert on that house. You're going to know better than I do, what's great about it. And you're going to be able to put your best foot forward with it.
I love that. That makes so much sense. What you just said makes so much sense to me. This like because when I think of the real estate agent, and I don't want to be disrespectful. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but like none of them are none of them are legal experts. None of them are like when I think of the real estate agents I know, and I know quite a few of them, I'm like, your point hits home really strong. Like what? They have a license. That's it. Like that's the only thing that really separates me and them.
Which I got in a weekend.
It well,
Literally
yeah,
got mine in a weekend.
and I think that's such an interesting point, and it also gets you to take a more active hand in your dispo side of things, right? Because I mean, I one of my pet peeves in the real estate investment community, particularly at the earlier starters, right? Like to me, there's a real difference between those people who have big companies that are doing, hundreds of deals a year. They have it systematized, worked out. Like
Yep.
it's kind of or they're either real lucky or that doesn't usually work. It's because they've built something great. But the people who are getting started and sort of getting to that point of maybe trying to do a deal a month or two deals a month where you're really trying to you're really making a go of it. One of my biggest pet peeves is the simple fact that everybody focuses on the acquisition and lead gen and nobody and doesn't think about the disposition side of things. And like it's shocking to me how many people I talk to who invest all the money and all the efforts into this acquisition side and lead gen and cold callers or whatever it is, but then sort of like and get it right through and make get them under contract and they're super excited, and then they keep thinking about more leads and they don't really pay any attention to the dispo side, and that's where you make your money. like
For sure.
like it's you can get as many leads in as you want, but if you can't then convert that, what are you doing? So let me ask you your opinion then. So because one of the things I've noticed, and I may be wrong, you'll know more than me, um but one of the things I've noticed as the markets change a little, I think we all understand that what works before doesn't always work. You got to pivot around. Um, and one of the things I've noticed is that for a number of years, you could get away with almost anything on a fix and flip. Like you could get your numbers wrong
Yep.
because the market was so the seller was so strong that okay, I didn't price it very well and the build went over by 3 months and my carrying costs were this and all, and you're still making money, and that got really sloppy. Really, that made a lot of people really sloppy. I think now that's no longer true. I think I don't think that wiggle room is there anymore in most markets. So what you're saying essentially is also, the tighter we have to be with our numbers, the more this method makes sense, because you are again tightening up another part of it.
Yeah, I mean it's like growing up playing soccer, thinking you're like untouchable. So then you get in ice hockey and it goes full contact, and you're like, "Holy crap! There's consequences to this game." Yeah, you get slapped up against the board really quick in this market if you're not careful. And so a lot of the things that we were able to get away with in the past as investors, where we could maybe take some bigger risks, it's gotten so tough now that your acquisition strategy has to be perfect. Your money strategy, where you get your money from, has to be perfect. Your capitalization strategy from how you're going to actually make this thing turn revenue back for you has to be perfect. And your exit, damn it, has to be perfect. And it's crazy how how a tough market, it really just strips out all the mediocre and B players, and only the A players are left. But now, here's the double-edged sword of that. So let's say you're still in the market. You made it. You made the cut. You're an A player. Guess what you're competing against now? all the other A players. And I promise you, you're not the best guy out there. If you hear my voice, there's somebody better than you, because that's just something you're going to have to get used to in life. There's somebody out there better at what you do than what you're doing yourself. So with that said, it's not about trying to be perfect. It's about saying, where are the gaps in my system and how can I optimize? And one of the biggest gaps I see out there is on the liquidation side. People just throw money out the window when it comes up. They don't even realize what they're spending money on. All those fees that you get on a HUD closing statement, closing costs, transaction costs, courier costs, all these things. If you just dump that stuff on a real estate agent, say, there you go, figure it out, pal, you never get any clarity into what that is. But when you're working directly with a title company, directly with a closing attorney, depending on what state you're in, you get firsthand visibility, and you're able to push back on some of those things. But what's this miscellaneous fee? Yeah, I know maybe it's only $300-400 on a $500,000 sale. Still, again, when we think about leverage as investors, $300-400, that's a lot of money into our next deal.
Now, I'm sorry to interrupt this amazing conversation, but I wanted to make sure you knew that Smartphone, the only phone system built for real estate investors, connects to the best-in-class real estate investing CRMs. And because, as it's my show and I am co-founder and chairman of Smartphone, I got some great deals for you. Click the link and take advantage of 5,000 minutes free calling with Smartphone, the only phone system built for real estate investors. Click and call. Close more leads. Back to the show. I want $400 in my pocket, not theirs.
Yes.
Like,
Amen.
you should, if you're not thinking about that as an investor, then you're insane. I mean, okay. Now you talked a bit about, can you break down for someone who, I think anybody who's dealt with any real estate transactions is going to know the basics of what has to go into it. If you don't, then real estate investing is probably not for you. But break down, you've already broken down the myth kind of that it's too complicated or that you need a law degree. What are the basics you need if someone wants to get started? How would they get started? Is that something you're teaching, or like if I'm in a market and I'm thinking and listening to this and thinking, geez, okay, I'm doing some flips here and I would like to make some more money on this. What's the step and what is the sort of barrier to the knowledge barrier they have to get past and through?
So the first thing you're going to want to do is understand what the actual process is. And it's a blueprint. So I put together a blueprint on my website. I actually have an ebook out there for it's a 7-day launch plan. Basically takes you through all of the steps every day and how to get your house on the market in 7 days. It's actually on my website. If you go to foolprooffsbo.com/ebook. And there's another thing on there I created for us investors. It's an investor power pack, and it speaks more toward us as investors, what's important to us. Same website, foolprooffsbo.com/investors. But all that to say, for example, one of the things I teach in there and I want everybody who's an investor who's even thinking about selling in the next 6 to 12 months, I want you to hear me on this. We are selling against A players out there. That's all that's left. This tough market has stripped away all the non-performers. So you are going to have to be different and better than everybody else you're selling against. And the same old stuff that used to cut it in the past is not going to work. If somebody walks in and your closet doors don't shut cleanly, forget it. They're leaving. If they walk in and your door, they have to yank your door open to get it, forget it. They're leaving. So what I do with all my people is I tell them to get a pre-listing inspection. You hire a building inspector acting like you're the buyer. Well, I mean, you tell the inspector what to do, but put yourself in the shoes of the buyer and say, I want you to go through this house as if I was your buyer client, and I want you to tell me everything that's wrong with it. You go through and you fix everything that's a handyman level or below. No questions asked, freaking do it. So hire a handyman or just do it yourself. Second bucket of things are end of life. The air conditioner is 17 years old. The roof's 12 years old. It all works fine, but it's old. We price that into the condition of the home, right? And the third thing are code violations, safety issues, or major things. So there's a live electrical wire arcing around in the attic like a live cobra. Yeah, let's go ahead and cap that. Let's get that fixed, right? We're not jerks. We don't want to sell somebody an unsafe home. But after we do that, that building inspector comes back to us. They give us a clean bill, well, a cleaner bill of health where we say, hey, we knocked out a lot of your punch list. Can we get a re-inspect? They usually do it for free. Then here's the ninja move. When you have buyers coming to check out your home, you say, listen, I'm not dumb enough to think that you're dumb enough to think that this house is perfect. Everybody else out there is going to lie and try to conceal what's wrong with their home. Here, I'm opening the kimono. Here's this house. Here's how we priced it. Here's what's wrong with it. Here's what's good about it. Open book. Still recommend you do your own inspection. But when you do that, dude, these buyers are going to look at you like, are you serious? They spend so much of their time worrying about what's hidden underneath the surface, like the iceberg effect, right? And you just take the ammo out of the gun, Jordan, because now, as a buyer's agent, how many times have you sold a home where the buyer goes, oh yeah, this inspection report's bad. You got to fix this. Well, now we just take the ammo out of the gun before they can even point it at us.
The teeth out of the mouth, like you're defanging everything. I love that approach. You know what's funny, Tim? That you're the second person to talk dispo to me in the last week, because last week I had Daniel on from Investor Base. I don't know if you know Investor Base. They're a dispo platform to find buyers, and you're the second person to say something very similar, which is his point, and I think it marries up your point perfectly, was every time you go to sell a house, you reach out to a buyer, you're not just having to match what they want to buy. You're competing with everybody else who's reaching out to that buyer. And you've got to remember that. So the days of just throw it up there and be like, yeah, I've got it, put it up there, someone will buy it, I'm going to make some money, I can move on. Daniel's point, and I think your point, is those days are not these days. And you have to Daniel's point was like, get a professional photographer in. It makes a difference. Don't you think that it's good enough to just go in with shitty lighting and all that? But you immediately, when you send this to a buyer list, they're going to be looking at it and be like, yeah, it's not interesting. Move on. Yep. And it could be really interesting, and you've undercut yourself. And what I like about that, you're sort of a different version of that, which is with your kind of ninja move on the inspection, which is to be like, hey guys, there's an open book here. There's nothing hiding here, because I'm going to show you the things, and we've priced it into the deal.
Yep. Yeah. And by showing your math, it's like showing your math to the teacher. That's how they really knew what you were doing. Showing your math, it kills all the price negotiation, or at least the overwhelming majority. Kills the opportunity for them to beat you over the head with the inspection report. But like you said, and Daniel's right on, don't think you can even get you. There's a lot that has to happen before you even get there. You have to give them what does that mean? Beautiful photos. It means a great description that wasn't written by a robot. You have to resurrect the ghost of Ernest Hemingway and tell a story about, hey, imagine waking up.
By the way, Ernest Hemingway. Oh, that's
yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, you got to work. The reason I did, I wrote a custom chat GPT called the Hemingway listing GPT, and it basically does that. It says you slap in all of your data about your home, and I write you a beautiful story about it. And the reason that matters is because these stupid generic two bathroom, 3-bed, 2-car garage on cul-de-sac, nobody reads that crap. But when you say something like, imagine waking up on a Sunday morning, you're steaming coffee on your granite countertops, looking over the irrigation system, watering your backyard. I mean, that's telling you a freaking story that you're going to want to read. And they're like, it gets so it's layers, man. Beautiful photos, great description, incredible price, slightly below the market. Get people's attention, get them emotionally invested. I try to have a circus. I have 2-hour showings, 2-hour open houses, and I only show once a week. I want a velvet rope across my property because that gets...
Man, do you know Dan? Because I may have to, I'll hook you two up because...
Right, awesome. Is it?
Yeah, this is an easy hookup because I think
that's cool.
Yeah, we actually brought Daniel in. So we're about to integrate smartphone with Investor Base, and we brought Daniel in. I run just started this year doing a monthly masterclass where I bring people into the community to teach. And this Daniel was our first one, and he was talking about dispo because that's
too cool.
And I've always felt that disposition is undervalued. Everybody always goes to the acquisitions, the lead. It's, I guess, I don't know why, because it's like, this is where the money is. Like, come on, whereas acquisitions is all about spending money, disposition is getting it. But I love you two are so aligned in what you're saying. Cool. And I think it's really important that people know this because I genuinely think if there's one thing I would always try and say to people who, and I try and kind of make that point when I speak to investors every week, is guys, like, pay attention to your dispo now, because all that work, all that marketing dollars you're spending and all that work is for nothing if you don't get the best deal possible and you don't shift that property. Because if you're doing a flip and you hold on to that property for an extra 5 months, well,
Forget
welcome
it.
to holding cost and welcome to
Yes.
all your property gone.
Yeah. Carrying costs, opportunity costs, so many phantom expenses that people don't even think about.
Wow, yeah, this is it's fortuitous timing that we're talking. Actually, I really want to try and focus a lot more effort for the smartphone community on Dispo, and really trying to bring them more value on that, because I've felt for years it's undervalued. It's
Well, I got to tell you about, I don't know if we have time still or maybe some other
please,
time.
no, no, please.
So there's another great hack then that I want your people to hear. Is it's called the invite only open house. So this was taught to me by this one, my hero Brandon Mulrennan. He was my old mentor. He taught me this. So every time we had a house going up for sale, 2 days before it went live, we'd host an invite only open house for neighbors only. We'd have wine, we'd have food, and the homeowner would call around to, or knock on doors even and say, hey, Jordan, I'm Tim over on 123 Main. We obviously haven't had a lot of time to get to know each other. Listen, I got a job opportunity out in San Antonio. I'm moving. You've been here longer than I have. You're like way, way more smart about this neighborhood than what I am and what really matters. I wonder, would you do me the favor of coming over? I'm doing a combination going away party / open house for neighbors only. I'm going to be putting the house on the market. I would love to get your opinion on what I should do to make it better. Any improvements you think I should make. I would love to know what your opinion is and how I can make this home even better. Because here's what happens, Jordan, is number one, you just flattered a stranger. And that's the old Ben Franklin move, which is, that immediately turns them into an ally. And number two, they now have mentally invested in the success of your sale, because you know who cares more about getting a good buyer for that house than you? The guy who has to live with them, the neighbors. Yeah. So now they're thinking, okay, I'm calling everybody in my church. I'm calling my Uncle Larry, who said he wanted to move here one day. My friend at work. Like, you've just created a boots on the ground sales force that has 6 degrees of separation out to tens of thousands of people that the MLS isn't going to touch. Facebook Marketplace isn't going to touch. Craigslist isn't going to touch. And that is where the real power comes in.
I love that, and it mirrors so much of the conversation I had last week. I think one of Daniel's big takeaways to me, or that I took away, was what they do. They don't have to do quite the same as that. That's great. That's brilliant. I love that because, again, you are 100% right. Who cares more about who moves in than the people who have to live with them?
And they want to see you get the full price, because they don't want a bargain price lower in there.
Yeah, because they want the price, because they want they sell the price to be there. I love that. That is genius. And and it chimes like, so one of the things that Dan would say was that what they do is, they, just like you, they have very exclusive viewings, and then they give like super strict deadline follow-ups. Like, by the way, we're only accepting offers tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like the office, you got to have an offer in by tomorrow at 3 p.m. or it's not going to be accepted. And establishing that when you do the exclusivity and then the urgency,
Yep.
and I think that chimes really well with what you're saying, which is just kind of a different version of that.
Yeah, that's how we almost always had our houses under contract in the first weekend. I mean, I walked out of one. So you do the neighborhood only open house on Thursday. Saturday is the main event, and you've been blowing everybody up about this. It's 2 hours from 12 to 2. And I want there to be fights in the driveway over parking. I want them arguing. I want freaking elbows bumping in, because here's what happens. We did this, and we were really good at this. I walked out one day just to get some air, because the house was such a freaking zoo. And I looked down to my left, and there's some lady in her car writing an offer to purchase on her steering wheel, because there were 2 other couples that were just in there that she overheard. Because I asked her, I was like, well, what are you doing? She goes, those 2 said they were going to make an offer. I just want to make sure I'm in the race. Freaking
And
unbelievable.
please do. That's my
Yeah.
dream come true.
Yeah.
When I
And,
get,
and I'll never forget because that homeowner was so scared because I got them to list at 25 grand under market. And they were like, dude, I can't take that big of a loss. I said, first of all, number one, sir, you're a home. You don't have to accept any offer. There's not a judge in the land that's going to force you to take any offer for your home, even if it's over. Nobody cares. But number two, that's not how this works. In the real world, where free market says they can bid on whatever they want, your house is going to sell for what it's worth. And that's the reality. It's going to sell for what it's worth. If it's not worth what you need out of it, the market doesn't care what you need. Market doesn't care what you want. It's going to be, but we knew we had great comps. I intentionally, strategically underpriced it. We had a zoo and it ended up going for like 30 or 40 grand over what we were asking. It was insane. So yeah, awesome.
that's a lot of very, very good and clever activity there. And your points around the preparation, making this for me, one of the big takeaways that I've taken from you, one of the many takeaways I've taken from today, that whatever you did in the past, knowing everything's going to sell easily is over. So you've got to really make that property sing. And you've got to make that property sing, and you've got to get people in the door and and you're differentiating yourself there. And it's work, but it's work that may get you an extra 20 grand. So do the work. Like
Yeah.
I've always laughed at that when someone is like, oh yeah, I could do this, but it takes a lot of time to do this. I'm like, and that's worth 25 grand.
Yeah. Yeah. Last I checked, that was real money.
Worth 5 hours of your time.
Well, it's funny too, Jordan, because there's, I was listening to a clip from, I think it was Alex Hormozy. It was something like, it's not about working smart or hard. You better be freaking doing both, because there's people out there that work smart and they work hard. And that's what you're up against these days. It's not just saying, oh, I'm going to outsmart the other guy. There's people out there with houses that have been sitting on the market for months and months and months, and their house is trash. No, it's not going to sell, but they're used to 2022 where they could throw a lump of dog crap on the market and it would get multiple offers. And that's the biggest problem. And what these, I get very frustrated because I've got family members out of state who have done this, and they've said, well, we're just going to hold out for our price. I'm like, no, you're not. You're actually losing money every freaking month that you're never going to see again. You don't pay insurance anymore. You don't pay mortgage anymore. You don't pay utilities. You're never going to see that money again. And what if you're going to take that money and invest that in your next project? How far ahead would you move? That's opportunity cost. Nobody thinks in those terms. That's why I love working with investors. Investors understand carrying costs. Investors understand, the speed to action, to how much better it is to be efficient in a sale as opposed to dragging it out and hoping some rich fool will come along and pay you what you think your property is worth when we all know it's not.
Yeah, and those days are over, and they're over for the next foreseeable future. So
for sure, especially if they're not cash buyers. Because again, let's pretend you do find a rich fool who offers you 600 grand for your $500,000 place. The bank's never going to approve that. So what'd you do? You came off the market, you went pending, you showed contingent, and then you went back on the market. Guess what every single buyer now thinks about your home? Oh, they must have found out there's a foundation crack. Oh, there's a leak in the attic, something. They always blame the home. They never blame the buyer.
Wow, and that's a lot of good. Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has really been interesting. So let's end with you and how people can get help from you, how people can benefit from what you do, because I think it's fantastic. So can you break down, you've given us some website links. I'm going to put them in the show notes, of course, going to make sure they're involved, but break down, how can people benefit from your wisdom and get in touch with you?
The best way is a lot of people aren't really suited to be a for sale by owner person. And that's fine. What I do is I tell people to take my quiz. It's a 2-minute quiz on my website, foolproofisbo.com/quiz. And we found out very quickly, is there anything that you potentially as an individual would preclude you from being a good for sale by owner candidate? Maybe you work too many hours, maybe you work too hard, whatever. Is there anything about the home that would preclude it? And that means, is the home subject to a divorce or a judgment or an estate, probate sale, something like that? If that's the case, work with real estate agents. But here's what I do. I have a nationwide network of real estate agents. I've already pre-negotiated that any of the people who come through me get their home sold at a reduced commission. So you're already going to save tens of thousands of dollars, regardless whether you sell yourself or sell through one of my preferred agents. I'm still going to make that intro for you. So yeah, go to foolproofisbo.com/quiz. And also just follow me. I put out all this content for free. I give it all away. I really do, Jordan. I do have a course, but honestly, guys, if you're capable of watching YouTube, you don't need to pay me a penny. Just go to foolproofisbo.com on YouTube, and I put everything out there, and you could really quickly figure out how to do this.
Fantastic. Well, I have to say, Tim, a genuine pleasure to meet you tonight. I say tonight because I'm actually in Europe right now. So yeah, I there's a slip of my tongue, so to speak. Yeah, it was absolute genuine pleasure. And I love the clarity that you're bringing there around almost myth busting a bit about why you couldn't do it yourself. And I think that's to me, my gut says that's usually the biggest hurdle, is that when people assume they can't do it because there's some mystic because it's a real estate agent, and that kind of it's one of those the man behind the curtain moments where where you're like, well, I can't do that because clearly you need to be the man behind the curtain to control all that, and then you realize actually you can do all that.
Totally can do it. Yeah.
And it's just like Dorothy. I'm dating myself because now it's all Wicked and my kids are into that and they don't know anything about Dorothy. And I'm like,
right. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's where this all came from, by the way. I love that. I love that clarity of breaking that down. I love the focus on disposition as well, because I think way too many people focus only on the acquisition instead of, well, what am I going to do to make money out of this? And I love that you've got a clear view and a clear way of people understanding this. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing this. And I will, once again, folks, please do pop over. The websites are going to be in the show notes. They're going to be in the YouTube, everything there. Pop over and take a look. And Tim, I'd love to have you inside the smartphone community at some point to drop a bit of this knowledge directly into the platform.
I'd be honored, man. I'm a huge fan of the show, and it was very, very humbling and honoring to be on here. So thanks for having me, Jordan. I appreciate it.
Have a great day, guys. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for listening to another amazing episode of That Real Estate Tech Guy. Head over to thatrealestatetechguy.com to check out all episodes and get special discounts on tons of awesome real estate technology platforms.